It was late April 1945. Northern Italy was crumbling. The war was lost, and Benito Mussolini, once the proud Duce of Italy, was no longer a leader, but a fugitive. Hunted, exhausted, completely hollow inside. You'd think that after 2 decades of absolute power, a man like Mussolini would go down fighting. But he didn't. His end was something far darker, something that still feels disturbing to watch, even now. Mussolini's story didn't begin with cruelty. It began with chaos. He was born on July 29, 1883, in a small Italian village called Predapio. His father, Alessandro, was a blacksmith, loud, political, and angry at the world. His mother, Rosa, was a teacher, calm, religious, and always tired. The boy grew up between 2 fires, faith and fury. By his teens, he already had a temper that frightened people. He carried knives to school, got into fights, once even stabbed another student. They expelled him, but that violent streak, it never really left. He became a journalist, a socialist, a man of words before he became a man of war. He could talk. Oh, he could talk. Crowds loved him, hated him, feared him. He had that magnetism, that dangerous kind of energy that can twist truth into belief. And soon it did. When the First World War broke out, Mussolini was against it. Then, suddenly, he changed his mind. He said war would forge the soul of Italy. His socialist comrades called him a traitor, and they were right. He was expelled from the Socialist Party. And from that betrayal came something new, something far more dangerous: fascism. He fought briefly in the war, was wounded, and returned home to a broken country. Italy was starving, angry, humiliated. The perfect storm for a man like him. By 1919, Mussolini formed his own movement, the Fascist Combattimento. At first it was small, loud, violent. His followers, the black shirts, roamed the streets, beating communists, burning newspapers, intimidating anyone who disagreed. And people let it happen, because they were scared, because they wanted order, because they thought, maybe this strong man will fix everything. He promised glory, and they believed him. By 1922, Italy was collapsing in strikes and riots. Mussolini marched on Rome, a show of force more than a real battle. King Victor Emmanuel III, terrified of civil war, gave in. He appointed Mussolini Prime Minister of Italy. Just like that, a dictator was born, legally. He built highways, drained swamps, held grand parades. Italy looked strong, on paper, but it was all theater. Behind the marble statues and the speeches, the country was bleeding. The economy was weak, the press was silenced, and fear ruled every home. Still, Mussolini dreamed of empire. He wanted to be the new Caesar, the man who would restore the Roman glory. In 1935, he invaded Ethiopia, a brutal war filled with atrocities and poison gas. No one stopped him. The world watched, quietly horrified, and Mussolini took that silence as approval. By the late 1930s, he found a friend in another monster, Adolf Hitler. They shared ambition, ideology, and a fatal blindness to reality. In 1939, they signed the Pact of Steel. And when Hitler plunged Europe into war, Mussolini couldn't resist. He wanted his piece of the empire. He joined the war in June 1940. But Italy wasn't ready. The army was disorganized, the weapons outdated, and the people exhausted. Every campaign failed: Greece, North Africa, Russia. Each defeat peeled away another layer of the illusion. By 1943, Italy was in ruins. Cities bombed, families starving, soldiers surrendering. Even Mussolini's own ministers turned against him. On July 24, 1943, the Fascist Grand Council voted to remove him. The next day, the king had him arrested. Just like that, the man who ruled Italy for 20 years was gone. He was imprisoned in a remote mountain hotel in the Apennines, cut off from everything, a prisoner of his own nation. But Hitler, he couldn't let that happen. In September 1943, German paratroopers launched a daring mission, Operation Oak. They rescued Mussolini from his mountaintop prison without firing a single shot. To the world, it looked heroic, but to Mussolini, it was just prolonging the inevitable. Hitler placed him as a puppet ruler in the north, the so-called Italian Social Republic, a hollow shell of power. He signed papers, gave speeches, but everyone knew the war was over. He was a ghost in his own country. By April 1945, Allied forces were advancing from the south. The Germans were collapsing. The partisans, Italian resistance fighters, were everywhere. Mussolini knew his end was near. On April 25th, he fled Milan with his mistress, Claretta Petacci, and a few loyal followers. They joined a German convoy heading toward the Swiss border. He disguised himself in a German uniform, a gray Luftwaffe coat, helmet pulled low. But he couldn't hide that face, that jaw, that stare. Everyone in Italy knew it. On April 27th, near the small village of Dongo, partisans stopped the convoy. They demanded to inspect every vehicle. And there, inside one of the trucks, they found him. Benito Mussolini, silent, pale, trembling. He didn't fight, didn't shout, didn't even beg. He just said quietly, "I am Benito Mussolini." That was it. They took him to a farmhouse in a nearby village of Bonzanigo. He spent the night there, guarded by men who hated everything he stood for. Some wanted to hand him to the Allies. Others wanted revenge. Right there, right then. By the next morning, the decision was made. Mussolini would die. April 28th, 1945. Cold, gray, silent. A man named Walter Audizio, known by his code name Colonel Valerio, arrived with orders from the National Liberation Committee. He carried a French MAS 38 submachine gun. At around 2 p.m., he and his men took Mussolini and Claretta Petacci for the farmhouse, placed them in a red Alfa Romeo. Eventually, the authorities ordered the bodies taken down. They were placed in crude wooden coffins and buried secretly in an unmarked grave outside Milan to avoid turning the site into a shrine. But it didn't end there. In 1946, Mussolini's body was stolen by die-hard fascists who wanted to give their leader a proper burial. For months, his corpse traveled in secret across Italy, hidden in trucks, barns, and monasteries. Eventually, it was recovered by authorities. For 11 years, the Italian government kept the body hidden. Finally, in 1957, they allowed it to be buried in Mussolini's hometown, Predapio. And today, even now, people still visit his tomb. Some out of curiosity, some out of devotion. They leave flowers, flags, and sometimes even a salute. It's strange, isn't it? A man responsible for so much suffering, war, dictatorship, death, still draws admirers. Maybe it's because people can't resist power, even when it destroys them. Or maybe we just like stories of fallen gods. Because deep down, every empire, every tyrant, they all end the same way. Not with glory, but with a rope and silence.